The brutal truth about college football recruiting, the ups, the downs, the emotional stuff going on, the crazy things that college coaches do, all the money that's involved, and the emotional roller coaster that high school football players and their parents go through. We're breaking all of that down today. You're listening to the Football Scholarship Podcast, the playbook for parents and athletes who want to secure the best football scholarships possible. From securing a D1 football scholarship in the SEC at Ole Miss at just £5,700, myself, to helping 83% of the athletes I mentor achieve football scholarship offers and 42% going Division I. I've learned countless lessons that I'll be sharing right here with you. Join me and my co-host Brian Overton, who has 15 years of D1 college football recruiting experience, as we interview top experts, successful athletes, and discuss current recruiting trends. Together, we'll help you navigate the recruiting process so you too can achieve your dream of running out of that tunnel in front of 100,000 screaming fans. Not only from myself, who earned a Division I football scholarship in the SEC, but also our head coach here at Next Play, Brian Overton, who has over 15 years of Division I recruiting experience. And on top of both of that, all of the players that we've mentored through the recruiting process, where now 89% of the players we have mentored have earned college football scholarships. We've seen it all from both sides of the table, and today we're really going to be breaking it down what your son is actually going through, all the different, hey, well, this kid has D2 offers, but, he doesn't have a lot of game film. Or how does this kid have all of these Division I offers, but he doesn't even play that much, right? All of the different things that are going on around high school football and everything that your son's going through. We're going to kind of break that down today. And, this has come up quite a bit. And obviously we get to interact a lot with a lot of parents and players that are going through this process. And so at this point in the game, right, we're into the spring, and you're seeing a lot of offers going out. And, especially with 26s, there's some frustration. And so we're going to break this down for you and just share with you exactly really what's going on so that you could take a step back, and attack the proper process appropriately. So Brian, kick us off, man, with just jumping right into, the emotional side of this for the athletes.
Yeah, and we tell our guys all the time, and they're sometimes they're sometimes a lot better at it than the parents are. To be honest with you, they take the coaching a little better sometimes than the parents. I get it, guys. Look, you want what's best for your kids. If you feel like they're deserving of something, you want them to have it. But unless you've been doing this a long time or have a lot of experience in the business, you know what I mean, or have somebody that you trust that knows what they're talking about, just be very cognizant of where you think they are and what they deserve, versus like somebody else, and the reason I give you that is, um, you know, 15 years was a long time, in college football. It's not as long as some, but it's a lot longer than most. And
True.
specifically being like outside the realm of, I never was a position coach or anything like that. You know what I mean? I made my career strictly on the personnel side. Okay. So it's not like I bounced back and forth and things like that. Like I had other titles, but, that's where I kind of hung my hat, and we felt like this was a topic of discussion because we just wanted all our listeners to know, especially during this time of year, that yes, you're going to see guys get offers that doesn't make sense to you, right? You're going to see guys get invited to junior days that may not make sense to you. You're going to see guys at a camp that you're at maybe get an offer that day in your position group that you thought you did 10 times better than, right?
Mm,
Stuff like that's going to happen. And the biggest one of them all, the biggest the biggest dark hole, black hole that parents go down is, social media, right? They get on there and they're scrolling and they're following every kid or whoever it is on their son's team and, the surrounding area. And lo and behold, he throws up there that he received an offer from this school, right? And sure enough, they're going, if we're working with them, they're going to reach out to us and, they're going to say, how in the world did this kid get an offer? He didn't play as much as my son last year. My son's obviously better than he is, uh, you know, and all that stuff. And, we keep having to tell them over and over again, you have to run your own race, right? You have to. And the best example, I was talking to our coaching staff this morning about it, on our daily call this morning, and we made the reference to the NFL draft, because the NFL draft just concluded, 3 days this week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and we were talking about, some of the really good players that didn't get drafted, and it's no different than high school recruiting, right? And me and Richie were kind of talking a little bit about this offline. These guys are the best in the world at doing it, at evaluating. No matter what you think about it, or you think your team didn't have a good draft, or it did, or it didn't, you hadn't put in a year's worth of work on all these players. Like, they're not, I'm not saying they're always going to get it right. They screw it
Right.
up all the time. And that's my point. Like, so do college coaches when they're offering high school players. It gets out of whack at every level because it's not a cookie cutter science. And I say that all the time. And saying that for, a year and some change now since I've been here. It's just not. Everybody's got a different set of eyes. Everybody's got a different reason for why they offer a player, why they draft a player in the NFL. Whatever the case may be. And I say all that to say there's a lot of context going on between why a kid gets offered, why he doesn't, why a guy gets drafted, why he doesn't. And you're never going to be privy to all the information, most likely, unless your son's like best friend with the kid or something like that, whatever the case may be. And what I will tell you is, one, I would reference you to our committable, non-committable offer episode that we did. That's number one.
If you're the parent of a high school football player who wants to earn a college football scholarship and your son is struggling with marketing himself or confidently communicating with college coaches, I wrote this book specifically for you. Inside it, I share exactly how I earned a Division I football scholarship in the SEC at just 5'7" and 150 pounds, without going to camps, being ranked, and without any connections. And right now, I'd like to give you a copy completely free. All I ask is that you just cover shipping. I'll drop a link in the description below so you can grab your copy before we run out.
I cover one of the points and very heavily in that one. As to why you may see some of them popping up out there. Okay. But some other scenarios I just want to go over with you briefly, just so you know things like this are out there, guys. Like, it's crazy that we're talking about this topic here. One of my best friends, lives here close to me. We played high school ball together. And I was fortunate enough to where I moved back here in North Carolina. I live really close to him now. His son's going through the recruiting process, and he had an old teammate from his old high school, that's getting recruited, and he texted me and said, hey, I think this kid's getting ready to commit to one of these two schools. And well, it was all out of whack. It was like one school was way up here, one school was way down here. You know what I mean? And I've told this story in the past. It just didn't match. But again, if I didn't know him and he wasn't, my best friend, and I didn't know his son, and all that stuff, like, I wouldn't know the context of that. So if I saw that from the outside as a parent on that team, you'd be like, holy smokes, he's got those two to choose from, and this, that, and other. Well, he can't commit to either one of them. Like, he can say that's going to be a bad phone call. Like, if he calls and tries to commit to either one of those schools, they're not taking him. I'm telling you right now, 100% they ain't going to take him. Okay? So go back and watch that episode is number one. Two. But he's posting it on social media now, and he's got everybody all up in a tizzy, the parents and the kids, like, holy cow, like, we played with this guy. They're like, come on, hold on now, this doesn't match. The other scenario that I'm going to throw out there that I may have never talked about on here, I don't think I ever have, and then I'll let Richie jump in here after I give you this scenario. But the other scenario that pops up is, guys, when coaches are playing a game within their self too. Don't ever forget that. Like, they're jockeying for position in a lot of ways between other coaches, like in the recruiting classes and things like that, right? So in the same way that, and I'll use this example because we were just talking about the draft. Me and Richie were talking about it, and I've talked about this kid before. That I just had at Arkansas, and Isaac Tesla, who was a Division II player who got in the portal. I was able to come across his tape really early in the process. Really liked him, but I knew as soon as I offered him, like, he was going to explode, and that's exactly what happened. Because then everybody's going to see the tape. And so we were the first big time school to offer him, and by the end of the week, like half the Southeastern Conference had offered him. Right, he had 6 SEC offers, I think, just like that. In the same way that happens to kids in high school, where it can be momentum like that, there are some grimy coaches out there, guys. I'm telling you, they may go to the school like in the spring evaluation period, like right now, and this kid's on their list, and they see him practice and things like that, and depending on what league they're in or division they're in, they're like, nah, this ain't it. Or they find some intel about him from, my classic is the lunch lady, or, the janitor, or whoever they may be, that nobody else finds out about for whatever reason, because they don't do that kind of homework, or that's not their type of evaluation. And they go in there, and in the same way where you want them to get momentum, you don't want them to get momentum because you want to keep them quiet because you really like them. Some guys will offer the kids so they get the momentum because they don't like them, and they want somebody else in their league to take him. Okay,
Mm.
so they'll go in there, and they'll meet with the kid, and this, that, and the other, and won't necessarily tell the kid they're offering him. They'll do something slick, like tell the coach, "Hey, coach, I know." They'll wait for Johnny to go back to class and say, "Hey, coach, like we saw, we're comfortable enough at throwing him an offer out there right now, non-committable, whatever. We want to put, we want to offer him, Kid's all jacked. He posts it, the whole 9 yards. It's non-committable, this, that, and other. Well, now everybody in their league sees it, right? And you're in the same division as them, same league. And this would be
They
Division
don't do
Two,
their
NAIA,
homework.
Division One. Doesn't matter. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter. So now they're going to go watch him, but they don't know that's why you offered him. They don't know you offered him so you can play against him and not so he's playing for you, right? So now you get a school that maybe doesn't evaluate as good as you guys do, and they watch. Oh yeah, this kid not bad. But again, they may not have the intel you have. They may have a different set of eyes and the whole 9 yards. But you as parents have no idea what that's going on. You just see the post online. And so now you're up in a tizzy because he's not better than your son. Well, you know what? He in reality he may not be. But the context behind why he got the offer is so skewed that you have no idea. That's why you have to run your own race and control what you can control. And that's just one minor scenario, and I've got tons of them.
Yeah, that I never thought, because we never talked about it that way before. But that's pretty wild,
Yeah,
thinking of like an offer coming from the other way for they want, like that would be like Lane Kiffin offering a player that they really think that they found out dirt about, so that Mississippi State goes and offers them and signs them. And
that's right. So you burn a scholarship on him, and he doesn't think he'll ever play in that league.
that's wild. Or he'll be a cancer to the team, or yeah,
Correct.
we've shared stories of schools that, players have paid schools to get an offer just to create momentum, or have a friend of a friend who throws them an offer to try to create momentum for the player. We've seen that, but I've never saw it the
Yep.
other way. That's pretty wild. I think that big picture here, just something to think about is that you can control what you can control. And that's why, I created this company Next Play, because I believe that the most important play is the next play. It's not the last play. It's not what's going to happen in the future. It's not what's happening in other people's lives. It's what can you do right now to get to the next level, to get better, to get yourself an opportunity to get a scholarship, to get better at the field, to get better at marketing yourself, to get better at selling yourself, to get better at telling your story, to get better at pitching coaches, to get better at doing the outreach, to get better at posting, to get better at, your craft on the field. Those are the things that are in your control. That's your next play. Whatever the most important thing is right now for you. These are examples. Sitting on social media and wondering why this player got an offer. Meanwhile, his dad knows somebody who had somebody offer his kid to help him, or like Brian said, the reverse of that. So it doesn't matter what happens to everyone else around you. And we had a player, his name's Felix. He's on our case studies page and all that. Great kid, not a big player part of his offense. Because they just ran a lot of 10 personnel and he was a tight end. And he ended up getting a Division II offer. And he wasn't really even a starter on his team. And so the number one person on his team was a 3-star recruit who had a bunch of D1 offers. And then it was him. And everyone on his team was like, what the heck? How is this possible? But they didn't see that he had sent thousands and thousands of, not like an email blast like you might be listening now and be like, oh, I could just send thousands of email. I could just use one of these email services and send it. No, that doesn't work, right? He sent thousands and thousands of customized emails, got responses from coaches, communicated with them, built relationships with them, and put him in a position to have the second most offers on the team. And he was a starting tight end, but he really wasn't even a starter because they ran 10 personnel. And he had the second most offers on the team. So when Brian says like, hey, we had a parent that was frustrated, or a friend of a parent that was frustrated because this kid got all these offers, but it doesn't even play. He's the example. All the parents on Felix's team were like, how the heck did he do it? And now they're all calling us, right? But this is real life, right? And so, obviously, if that's not you, then the most important thing is your next play. And your next play is predicated on what can you do right now to put yourself in a position to get an offer? And how can you just focus all your energy on your next play? Focus on that. Stop scrolling on next. Stop worrying about this parent and that parent and this thing. And none of that matters. Like when I was going through the recruiting process, I wasn't a highly touted recruit. Parents would talk crap, and my dad was just kind of the type that like never really got involved in any of that kind of stuff. But like I was never even in little league and in middle school and even in high school, like especially starting out, all these parents were talking and this big recruit and this kid is really good. And I was always just kind of on the back burner. And then I went to my little league, Brian, and they have all the players, right? Like from my class of like that played college ball. There wasn't many of them. And they were all like, and then you had little old Richie, never talked about, never a big time player, never anything, at the very, very, very top in the SEC, right? Like, so don't worry about what parents are saying. Don't worry about, well, this coach drafted this kid on this team and he's a better player and this guy got us an offer and none of that matters. The only thing that matters is, first of all, focusing on your next play and moving forward. And then from there, it's just focusing on what's in your control, right? And if you do that and you do it to the best of your ability and you never leave a stone unturned and you always do the right thing and you treat people with respect and you become the best player that you can be, doors will open up, opportunities will come your way, and you'll put yourself in a position to play at the highest level possible, right? You sit there and you worry about all the stuff that's out of your control, you're not going to focus on your next play. You're not going to get better, and you're going to end up quitting and then chalking it up to just saying, I'm not big enough, or I'm not talented enough, or I'm not a good enough player, instead of really putting yourself in the best position to become the best football player you could be, the best marketer you could be, the best salesperson you could be, and ultimately the best business person that you can be. And that's really what it takes today. And so that's my input on it, Brian, is
No, yeah, no, yeah, you're absolutely right.
stop.
And the other problem is, guys, I'd be remiss if I didn't say this, but I get on a soapbox every now and then. I try not to, but I mean, it just is what it is sometimes. I mean, some of you guys, because I've ran into this with parents or whatever, they're talking about what they see on X, this, that, and the other, and then I'll go randomly, check out their page and who they're following, you know what I mean, and things like that. Well, you're following some of these guys on X, like that'll say things like, you got to be playing on a good team, you know what I mean, for your recruiting to
How
go
does that
well,
have
or you know what I mean,
anything?
if you're not winning, then that's not, then you have no chance, or like Relationships matter, and I went on this huge rant, and they do between the player, between the recruit and the coach, they absolutely do. You know, so they say things like that. Again, they get you guys all up in a tizzy, because now you're saying, well, this kid's getting an offer because he's playing on a better team, right? This, that, and the other. Well, now I'm going to quit on my team and go try to play on a better team. And then you're going to go to that team and you're still going to be upset because another kid's getting an offer that you think you should have. You know what I mean? It's a revolving door, guys. Be very careful who you're getting your information from and what they're saying out there online, even if it's not a kid getting an offer. Okay. And some of these guys are like big on, and a lot of you guys are following them now. I know you are. I know you are. I've been doing this too long. A lot of you are following these guys. And they always want to say, check the credentials of the people you're listening to or the people you're giving your meeting, you're paying these people, you're doing this, or they're getting advice from them. And I 100% agree with them. I 100% agree with them because they're rolling the dice thinking you're not going to check theirs. Okay.
Mm.
So do yourself a favor and check theirs and ask yourself, okay, well, and again, guys, this correlates to what we're talking about because these are some of the people you guys are listening to about some of this stuff and why guys get offers and why they don't. That's why this is relevant to what we're talking about, okay? Because people say things like this. So make sure you do your research on these guys and ask a couple things. One, have they ever recruited a player in their life? Okay, not evaluated his tape. Okay, not coached at a high school program as a recruiting coordinator or whatever the case may be, or done any of those things,
Yeah, be
right?
careful of that one, right? Of like, oh, I was a recruiting coordinator, and then you look into it, and they were a high school recruiting coordinator. Big difference.
Right. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that.
No,
I'm
no, no,
simply
nothing
saying
wrong with it.
when some of these guys are big on check their credentials of players, when I'm speaking from it, and it's not just because it's me. There are some guys out there that have legitimate experience, but a lot of these guys that are saying this stuff just pulling it out of left field don't. Okay. They just want to get as many followers as they possibly can, and it's working. So I'm trying to prevent you guys from being. I mean, you can follow them all you want to, but I'm just trying to prevent you from believing some of this stuff and see what have they actually done it. Like, have they been sitting in the school talking to the kid? Have they been sitting in that staff room stacking players on a board, and actually comparing kids and knowing the behind the scenes stuff of how that stuff gets done and things like that. That's what I would encourage you to do, guys, okay? Because that's part of the problem in itself, all right? And then you see also, and I ranted about this not too long ago. You see these random people throwing random star rankings out here on guys, and you guys think that's real and that matters and all this stuff, and nobody cares. Nobody cares what kind of star ranking they give those guys. All right. Now, when you see that, be very cognizant of why they are not just telling them what division level they are playing at and trying to help them target that to give them the most success, or are they just throwing that on them again to get more followers, make the kid feel good, and make you feel good as a parent? There's a distinct difference between the two. Okay, distinct. And if that's what you're looking for, have at it. Right? If you want your kid to have some random star ranking that nobody cares about, all right, because you're frustrated because he doesn't have any offers, and you say, well, let me go to this guy and he can give him a star ranking, and they'll just start blowing in. No, it has not changed the tape. That star ranking does not change the tape. Okay, and you
Right.
need
And
to
there's
be
a
very
difference
careful of the
between
credentials of the person giving them that tape, that
and there's
star
a
ranking.
difference between a star ranking on like 247 or on 3 and
Correct. I'm talking
ESPN
about a random one. That's what I mean when I say a random one. Yeah.
versus like Bob Sanders on X that's giving out. That's what you're talking about, right?
Well, I don't want to like directly call them by name.
I,
They're
I
they're out
don't
there
even know. I
hustling
just
and
made up
getting.
that name. That's not a real name, by the way.
Oh, okay,
If
yeah.
that
Bob
is a guy,
Sanders.
my
Bob
bad. I
Sanders
got
out
it.
there. Yeah, they're out there saying he's a verified 3-star. Well, what does that mean? Like, and even if you tell
Verified.
us, nobody cares what that means. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it moves the needle none whatsoever. Or I had 60 coaches follow me in the last 3 days. You know what I mean? Well, good for you. Nobody's recruiting you. They're recruiting a player, and that doesn't change anybody's tape. So who cares? Like, you know what I mean? They got to go to a big program. You got to go to a winning program to get a scholarship. Well, just go to our YouTube channel. Like we had some, the 6-man football kid in the middle of Iowa signed a high level Division II. They did they. I mean, I don't have to explain that to you. Like, well, how'd they find him?
He
Like,
had 10
how's that
people.
work?
He literally had 10 people in his senior class.
So I mean,
It wasn't
it
Iowa, but
kind of make. I mean, not Iowa. I said the wrong state, but I was thinking of corn
Texas.
and farming. He lived on a farm, Texas. I'm sorry, but
He literally
he was on
lived.
a farm. There's a farm.
You're
Yeah,
talking about
his family
Keegan.
runs a farm. It was awesome. It
Yeah,
was
his
awesome.
family runs a
He'd get
farm.
on the group. He'd get on the group calls in his tractor with his cell phone set up in there.
I
You know what I mean?
swear,
Just
dude,
grinding away at it.
this kid would show up to the
Yeah,
calls in a tractor. You'd be like,
it was
what the
awesome. I love him.
kid
But
man
I
played
mean,
6-man football, 10 people in his
yeah.
class. Nobody in his school had ever earned anything higher than an NAI scholarship. He was the first kid in school history to get a Division II, not in football, in any sport, a Division II scholarship. That's awesome.
And you know why that happened? And you know why that happened, guys? Because he ran his own race, and he didn't have time to worry about what was going on around him. Obviously, he didn't have any other teammates that was happening to. But he wasn't looking around the country and watching everybody's tape and saying, "Well, I'm better than him. I'm better than him." No, he just put his head down and went to work and did his thing, and that's why that happened. Because he was running his own race and not worried about what was going on around him, and he was listening to people that knew what the heck they were talking about, and he trusted them. And that's why the end result became the end result. He wasn't listening to some of these random guys on X that have never recruited a player, never worked on a recruiting staff, never worked in college football, because they rank some kids every now and then, you know what I mean, and do this and do that, you know what I mean. They think they're preaching the gospel here. That's not the truth.
Also one thing too, Brian, like, with all the guys, with Keegan too, like it wasn't like easy. Like the kid did a ton of
No, by
outreach.
no
He
stretch
did
of the
the work.
imagination.
Yeah. No, I know you didn't. I'm just saying, like, sometimes it's easy for people to be like, oh, okay. It's like, no, this kid did, he had ups and downs. He tore his MCL halfway through this on top of all that. Forgot about that. And still did
That's
it.
crazy.
It still did it.
Because he wasn't running. He didn't have time to run other people's race. He was running his own. That's why.
He was running his own race. And even after the adversity, even after, he still showed up, he still did the work. We didn't let him quit. Like, he didn't look at other people's stuff. He stayed focused on his play. He stayed focused on the most important thing in front of him. And that was his next play.
That's it.
And that was whether it was emailing a
That's it.
coach, DMing a coach, whatever it was, he focused on the play. He didn't worry about, good thing he was on a farm, right? He wasn't looking at, he wasn't trying to look at other people's film and X and all this other trash. So that wasn't his focus. And, as a result of that, he got to where he is. And I'll tell you what, there are a lot of players that are highly talented, Division II, FCS, maybe even some low-level G5 players that coaches don't know about, and they're getting down on themselves because they don't have any offers, and they don't have any offers because nobody knows them. And if they would just run their own dang race and stop worrying about it, well, they'd be in a different spot.
Yeah. Eventually, you gotta grab your own wheel, guys. Like, how about you drive the car for a little bit and stop worrying about who else is, stop worrying about who's riding in the back seat. You're too busy turning around looking at them. You're gonna run the car in the ditch. How about grab the wheel and look forward and keep your eyes on the road and get where you're going safely. Maybe try that. Too busy turning around looking at them, what they got going on in the back seat.
Right.
That was
That's
right off the top
true.
of my head. That was the best analogy I could come up with at the time, but I hope it was effective.
I love it, dude. I mean, look, like and for the parents listening right now, like, this is not about just college football recruiting, right? This is life. You know what I mean? This is life in general. If you're always focused on everybody else but yourself, you're never going to accomplish anything. You're always going to be in the wake of somebody else, And that's why I, Brian and I, and this is why we created Next Play. Because like what we're doing with these young men is we're not teaching them just how to market themselves and sell themselves and confidently communicate with college coaches. We're teaching these young men how to be businessmen, how to step up to the plate and go after what they want and stop worrying what people think about them and stop worrying about other stuff that's going on. And I guess if we were to put it down in one word, we're teaching them focus, right? We're teaching them how to focus on their next play, on what they can control, on the most important thing for them. And that's a skill set that creates big time confidence. And obviously big time confidence leads to a lot of success in anything that you do, whether it's a job interview or it's you want to write a book one day or you want to start your own, like these are the skill sets, right? And unfortunately today, man, young men have just been beaten up, dude, and they just don't believe in themselves. They got no freaking confidence. And, the last thing they need to do is to get down on themselves in the recruiting process and give up. Because I tell you what, man, you give up now, you're going to give up on a lot of different things, and for the rest of your life. I mean, I'm a big, who was I watching? Oh, I reposted it on X of one of the players that got drafted. And he said, that he didn't quit on something when he was younger, and it made and he never will quit on anything ever again. And I really resonated with that because my dad did that to me, and he would never let me. You always had to finish what you started. I think that just like all these other skills we're teaching these guys is like, you could quit when the season's over. You can quit when you finish your commitment, right? But you got to finish your commitment. You got to finish what you start. And these are all lessons that like these guys get to learn now in high school that are going to shape them for the rest of their lives and who they're going to be as young men. You know what I mean? As men in general. Taking control of what they control, focusing on what they should be focusing on. Stop freaking worrying about everybody else.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say is, guys, I know it's hard. I'm not saying it's easy. You know what I mean? I know when you're in the mix of it, recruiting can be stressful, and you want to know what everybody else has got going on. There's one thing to know, and there's one thing to like let it control how you're attacking the process, or you know what I mean, or because listen, guys, and again, this is more to the parents. Like if you're concerned with that and you're talking about it all the time, well, the kid's going to be talking about it all the time too. He's going to be concerned about it. You know what I mean? And that's not good for anybody. So like if you want to do it on your own, while you're laying in your bed scrolling at night and keep the thoughts to yourself, I mean, whatever. We're not telling anybody how to parent or do whatever. You do whatever you want to do. But the more you're talking about why things are happening for other people and they're doing this and we're not getting this, you know what I mean? It's taken away from time you could be getting better or doing something to help yourself. That's just my opinion on the whole matter.
Yeah.
And again, there's a lot of context that goes into a lot of this stuff that sometimes you will never find out. So don't just always think it's just so cut and dry. They think you're better. They think that kid's better than your kid on tape. You know what I mean? It's not always that cut and dry.
What do you mean by that? Just
Well, like I said, like the scenario I gave earlier, like, you know what I mean, where they're trying to get him momentum for the exact opposite reason. You know what I mean? Or
right. I see.
like the reference we gave earlier. Well, my buddy, I played in college with, or I played with this guy, and I played for this coach in college. Now I got a son. Let me call him. Hey, do me a favor, offer my son. You know what I mean? So I can get this thing going. There's 100 scenarios that can go around why they get an offer and why they post it that may have nothing to do with their tape.
Right. Like Zippo. Nada.
Yeah. And so when you start comparing apples to apples, it's not gonna make sense. So that's why you can't do that you just drive yourself crazy doing that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, I think this is just such a really important topic, and one that I hope parents, if you're listening and you share this with your son, and if you're a player, share this with your parents. Like, this is a good family podcast. Because it's not just about football recruiting. This is about life, right? And focusing on what you can control and run your race. stop worrying about everybody else. What you can worry about is posting more and doing it better, and doing outreach more and doing it better, and building better relationships with coaches, right? And stop worrying about all this stuff that's not in your control, because you have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. So, anything else, Brian, you want to add before we
No, that's it. I
rock
think we
and roll?
covered it.
Cool. All right. Well, if you got value from this video and you'd like to watch more videos just like it, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification. We post a podcast every single Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific. And then if you're on YouTube right now, we post an evaluation every Saturday morning and a more how-to coaching type video every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific as well. So consider subscribing. If you're listening to this podcast on any other platform, leave us a review if you can, and put your questions in that review. We definitely look at every single one of them, and that's how we continue to come up with content for the show. So we appreciate you being here today. And I did say this on YouTube, but only 21% of our viewers are subscribers. So definitely consider subscribing. We'd love to have you here for the future. And obviously there's no cost for doing so. So thank you so much for being here, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Football Scholarship Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe and leave us a review. And for more free resources, or if you're interested in working with us, visit gonextplay.com. Until next time.